Welcome, curious minds. Today, we're not really doing an exploration, we're sharing some stories. Chilling ones. Stories about those times when, ordinary get-togethers like sleepovers take a really unexpected, terrifying turn. We've got a few accounts here, unsettling ones, and we're just going to tell these stories, pull out the details that really stick with you, so get ready. These aren't just tales, they're experiences that might make you think twice about the quiet comfort of a sleepover.
Indeed. And what we'll hear are, I think, powerful examples of how fast that feeling of safety can just evaporate. Really reveal some unsettling things that could be lurking just, under the surface of normal life.
Okay, let's start. The first one begins in what sounds like a pretty idyllic spot. A big, sprawling 2-acre backyard in Georgia. Can you picture it? Woods on 3 sides. It had a trampoline, a hot tub, even an attached 3-car garage, an above-ground pool. Basically a dream for an 11 or 12-year-old kid and his friends. Let's call them Michael and Jason. They planned a classic camp-out sleepover. They played sports, had pizza. Then, as it got dark, they set up their 2 tents. The narrator mentions he was a Boy Scout, so he was pretty good at setting them up. Backyard lights came on. Perfect scene for Manhunt, their favorite game. Now, here's where it starts to get really interesting. During the game, the narrator's hiding under the trampoline. He sees the 2 hunters look away, so he makes a break for it. Sprints towards the hot tub, which is near the house. Just as he ducks down behind it, he hears the sound like one of the big trash bins on the side of the house almost tipping over. And then, click, a motion detecting light flicks on. But he knows the hot tub wouldn't have set off that particular light, so he peeks around the corner and sees a tall person, dressed in dark clothes. Speed walking away, fast, disappearing into the woods. And he knew straight away it wasn't his dad. He just yelled, "Game over!" Called it off right then.
That's it, isn't it? That first subtle thing that feels wrong, that instinct to stop the game, it was strong. It shows how sometimes we just know something's off, even if we can't explain why yet. The bin, the light. His brain registered it wasn't right.
Right, and his dad did come out, checked the woods, checked the street, found nothing, so they decided, okay, maybe best to sleep inside tonight. The boys were a bit disappointed, obviously. But later on, after playing video games inside for a while, they started thinking, what are the chances whoever that was is still out there? Hours later, the tents were all set up anyway, so very quietly, trying not to wake up the dad, they slipped back outside. So the narrator and Mike are in one tent, Michael and Jason in the other. They joked around a bit between the tents, and then things got quiet. The narrator says he wasn't asleep yet when he heard it. Footsteps in the grass coming towards their tent. And then the tent zipper starts to unzip. He looks up, fully expecting to see his dad checking on them, but no, it's a complete stranger. A man looked about his dad's age, just peering inside the tent.
Yeah, the sheer audacity of that. It's quite striking. This isn't someone just stumbling by. Unzipping a tent with kids inside, that's a deliberate act. It speaks to a real lack of inhibition, or maybe something else entirely. And then grabbing their ankles, telling them to be quiet, but backing off quickly when they screamed. It suggests he wasn't prepared for immediate loud resistance. Calculated maybe, but not foolproof.
Yeah, the narrator just screamed, "Bloody murder." Mike screamed too. The man grabbed their ankles for just a second, hissed, "Be quiet," but then just gave up when they kept screaming. He vanished, gone. The boys scrambled out, ran inside. Their dad, woken by the screams, was already coming out of the house. They told him, "The man from before, he came back." And their dad, pretty brave, ran out into the yard shouting, basically daring the guy to show himself. Meanwhile, their mom called the police. They came, took a report, the whole thing.
It's just a really stark example of how vulnerable you can feel, even in your own backyard, a place that feels totally secure. That feeling of safety just shattered. And the trauma for those kids, that violation, plus never knowing who it was or what happened to them, that sticks with you. It also shows that even if the threat seems to disappear, like after the dad checked, it doesn't mean it's truly gone. Assumptions about safety can be dangerous.
Okay, let's shift gears. Our next story deals with a different kind of fear, linked to isolation, real remoteness. This one takes place at a friend's house. Let's call her M. Her house was deep in the woods. And when I say deep, I mean the nearest neighbor was like half a mile away. But the really striking thing, the back of her house was literally on a cliff, dropping straight down to the ocean. Lots of big windows facing that view. So the sleepover starts out pretty normal for teenagers. Truth or dare, hide and seek. Their friend Sam was there too. But late that night, maybe midnight, they decide to go for a walk down the gravel road leading to the house. They walk for maybe 10, 15 minutes, and then they see him, a man, walking towards them but on the other side of the road.
And right away, things felt wrong. The details are what make this so creepy. First, his clothes. He was wearing really thick, heavy clothing, almost like snow gear. But it was, 60 degrees Fahrenheit out? Warm? Just didn't fit. But the thing they really couldn't forget, the thing that hit them as they got closer, was the smell. They described it as horrific, disgusting, a stench so bad words couldn't capture it. One of them almost threw up.
Yeah, they were so repulsed they immediately just turned around, headed back to the house. But as they passed him again, holding their breath this time, they glanced back after a few steps, and that's when the terror really kicked in. He wasn't walking away from them anymore. He had turned around. He was following them.
This is a classic escalation, isn't it? It's textbook predatory behavior. He observes, then he follows. Then as they speed up, he speeds up. Jogging, then sprinting. And then the knife, or something sharp. It shows this deliberate increase in threat, from just being there to active pursuit to revealing a weapon. And the fact that their screams stopped his sprint, but he just stood there, watching. That's chilling. Still calculating, maybe. Unwilling to fully commit to the attack yet.
They absolutely bolted, ran straight back to M's house, slammed the door, locked it. They were too terrified to even think about waking M's parents, who were already asleep, so hours go by. It's maybe 2 a.m. now. They're trying to distract themselves, watching a horror movie. The narrator is sitting on a couch right next to one of those big windows that looked out over the cliff into the darkness. Suddenly, footsteps. Outside. Right by that window. Em whispers it might be this deer she'd been feeding, one that apparently came right up to the house sometimes. The narrator looks out, but it's pitch black, can't see a thing. But then her friends remind her, what about the guy from the road? And she thinks, yeah, okay, definitely not going outside.
The persistence is what's terrifying here. He wasn't scared off. He followed them back. And now he's circling the house. He's using the darkness, the isolation, and that gut feeling the narrator keeps having. That's the intuition screaming again, isn't it? Even when her friends try to rationalize it, she feels it. And then seeing him later, shirtless, that's deeply disturbing. It's like he's shedding any pretense of normalcy, a very bad sign.
So another hour creeps by. Em and Sam are asleep now, somehow. But the narrator just can't rest. She feels wrong. She looks out the window again. There's some moonlight now. And she sees movement. Off in the woods to the left, she grabs a flashlight, points it out there, and freezes. It's him, the man from the road. But this time, he's completely shirtless, just standing there. She tries shaking her friends awake. Sam wakes up, groggy. They look back out, but he's gone, vanished again. Sam mumbles something like she's imagining things, rolls over, goes back to sleep. Around 4:30 a.m., still dark out, the narrator hears a knock on the door. She knows she shouldn't, but curiosity, maybe adrenaline. She creeps over and looks through the peephole. Nothing, nobody there. She goes back to the couch. 5 a.m., she jolts awake, cold sweat. And then that smell, that same disgusting stench hits her. Inside the house, she starts shaking, can't control it, and then hears footsteps approaching her. In the room, she screams, instinctively flicks on her flashlight, and there he is, the man. Standing in the corner of the living room, her screams wake Em and Sam. They start screaming too, and as they scream, the man just runs out of the house.
Em's parents finally come running downstairs. Total chaos. Mom calls the police, Dad grabs a shotgun, actually walks down the road looking for him. The police arrive, take statements. But the truly horrifying part, the narrator found this out years later, the police eventually did find the man. And inside this old abandoned shed, nearby a shed the kids used to dare each other to go into, they found 5 dead bodies. And that terrible stench the girls smelled on him. It was the smell of decaying human flesh. It just recontextualizes everything, doesn't it? They didn't just encounter a stalker. They encountered him, potentially, in the midst of his activities. It highlights how terrifyingly close they came. Now, sometimes our most basic senses, like smell, can pick up on profound danger before our minds can even process it.
Wow. Okay, our final story tonight takes us into a different kind of horror. Maybe more insidious. The kind that comes from someone you actually know, or thought you knew. This comes from a guy, Joe, who works in risk management in Manhattan finance. Back in 2019, a new guy, Sebastian, transferred to his office. Sebastian seemed like the life of the party. Very sociable, always talking, laughing, smiling, telling these wild stories, beautiful women, hanging out with celebrities. Amazing trips.
And this is often how it starts, isn't it? With that charismatic surface. People with certain personality issues, maybe narcissistic traits, antisocial tendencies, they can be incredibly charming. It makes it hard to see what's underneath. Sebastian's constant stream of, let's say, enhanced stories, that could easily be a sign of grandiosity, building up this fake image.
Exactly. Joe and Sebastian started hanging out, weekends, becoming friendly. But pretty quickly, Joe started realizing that a lot of what Sebastian said, well, it probably wasn't true, fabrications. So Joe started taking everything with a grain of salt, as he put it. But he kept hanging out anyway because, Sebastian was easy to hang out with and kind of funny.
And that's the tricky part. that gradual buildup of unease. Joe's instinct is telling him something's off, taking it with a grain of salt, but the social pull is still there. He's easy to hang out with. Big guy. It shows how we sometimes rationalize or overlook red flags, especially when someone is superficially likable. You question if you're being manipulated, maybe, but it's hard to be sure.
Well, things took a serious turn when Sebastian invited Joe and his little brother Tyler down to Florida, to a supposedly wealthy mom's condo in St. Pete Beach for a weekend. The weekend started, bizarrely. They go to a beach bar, Sebastian starts pounding drinks, gets drunk really fast, then he becomes aggressive, hitting on girls really inappropriately, getting confrontational. Joe actually had to step in, pull him away from some bigger guy, apologize for him. Sebastian's reaction, he shoves Joe, calls him a piece of shit for not having his back, then storms off with his sister who was also there. So Joe and Tyler just stay at the bar for a bit. They actually end up talking to two girls, get their numbers. Later, they text Sebastian. He's back at the condo, and suddenly he's all excited again, asking if they're going out later. But then Joe mentions getting the girls' numbers, and Tyler makes a joke, something like, yeah, they came over right after you left, yeah. Sebastian's smile just vanished instantly. He turned, stormed into his room, slammed the door shut. Joe starts thinking, okay, this guy might be extremely bipolar or something.
Those massive, rapid mood swings, from excitement to intense rage. That's more than just a bad mood. It strongly suggests severe emotional dysregulation. That quick flip, especially triggered by something related to social status or, success with women, it points towards something like narcissistic injury. His inflated self-image gets punctured and the reaction is way out of proportion. And the aggressive texts and calls Joe apparently got later, threatening to throw his stuff out, that just confirms the spiral into irrational anger.
Right. So Joe and Tyler go back to the condo, kind of worried. They find Sebastian just sitting alone on the couch, staring blankly at the wall. Joe asks him, hey man, you okay? Sebastian just glances at him, looks away, mutters, yeah, I hope you had fun. Then gets up, goes to his room, shuts the door again. Later that night, Joe and Tyler are in their room, the guest room they're sharing. They're talking quietly. Suddenly, they hear footsteps on the wood floor right outside their door. They stop talking. The footsteps come right up to the door. Stop. Silent. They both realize he must have his ear pressed against the door, listening. This goes on for like 5 whole minutes, just silence outside the door. Then the footsteps move away, and they hear him in the living room, laughing and talking to himself. Joe creeps over, cracks the door open just a tiny bit, and he sees Sebastian standing in a dark corner of the living room, leaning against the wall, laughing and muttering. And Joe clearly hears him say, Joe is always such a stupid bitch, and Joe's name, of course, is Joe.
Okay, this is where it shifts from unstable behavior to something deeply personally terrifying. Psychological horror, the eavesdropping, the self-talk, the targeted insults, and it suggests a really disturbed internal state. Maybe paranoid thoughts, delusions about Joe. It's not just random anger anymore. It feels like a specific, focused hostility. The realization that the earlier outbursts weren't just drink and rage, but came from this place, that's incredibly chilling. It really blurs the line between just being eccentric and being dangerously unstable.
Absolutely. Joe and Tyler look at each other and decide, right then, they're leaving. First thing in the morning, getting a hotel. Done. But the laughing and talking from the living room continues for another 10 or 15 minutes. Then it stops. They hear the footsteps come back to their door again. Pause there for maybe a minute. Then walk away towards Sebastian's room. They hear his door shut. Finally, it's quiet. They feel like, okay, maybe now we can actually try to sleep. But about 20 minutes later, Joe wakes up. He just opens his eyes. And Sebastian is standing there, right in front of your closed bedroom door, just standing. Joe jolts up, whispers, Yo, what are you doing? And Sebastian just lunges at the bed. Joe's in, screaming. He starts trying to, it seems like, strangle Joe, yelling things like, you're a piece of shit. You suck, Joe. I invited you here just for you to shit on my life and talk shit about me to my sister. Tyler had to physically grab Sebastian, pull him off Joe, and basically throw him into the corner of the room.
That physical assault, that's the terrifying culmination, isn't it? Where the psychological threat becomes real, overt violence. And the accusations Sebastian is screaming, you shit on my life, talk shit about me, they sound completely disconnected from reality. Paranoid, distorted thinking, likely fueled by whatever severe issues he was dealing with. It's such a potent reminder that danger doesn't always wear a mask or come from the shadows. Sometimes it comes from someone you invited in, someone you trusted, who then completely unravels. The horror is the betrayal, the shock of realizing how unstable someone close to you can truly be.
There was no talking him down. They just grabbed their bags, packed frantically, called an Uber, and got out of there. Spent the rest of the weekend in a hotel until their flight home. Joe said he saw Sebastian back in the office for a few weeks after that, but Sebastian completely avoided him, wouldn't talk to him, wouldn't even make eye contact. Eventually, Sebastian transferred to a different office. Joe thinks it was probably because of him.
That avoidance afterwards, it might suggest some awareness on Sebastian's part that he crossed a line, maybe shame, but likely not genuine remorse given the lack of apology. It reinforces Joe's conclusion that he was dealing with a very sick, damaged person. And for Joe, the trauma of that night, that attack by someone he considered a friend, that's a profound example of betrayal trauma, when trust is so violently broken.
So these stories, they really remind us how quickly things can change, don't they? How the comfortable, the familiar can become chilling. An intruder in the yard, a stalker on a lonely road, or the person sleeping in the next room.
They really highlight how thin that veil can be between feeling safe and facing real hidden dangers. Dangers that often appear without any warning, leaving a lasting mark. We saw intuition flashing warnings, predators testing boundaries, and charisma hiding some very deep disturbances.
So, what does this all mean for you, listening? As you think about these stories, maybe consider how our own instincts, how we perceive things, and just random circumstances, how they all shape our sense of security, what really makes a place, or even a person, feel safe. And maybe, how well do we listen to those little red flags, those gut feelings? Thank you for joining us as we share these unsettling narratives. We hope you'll continue to explore these kinds of stories and insights with us. And if you found these accounts chilling or thought-provoking, please do give this video a like, share it with anyone you think might be interested, and definitely subscribe to our channel, Horror Docs, for more content like this.